the defining moment that helped you become the person you were at Wolford and are today?
When I was elected the managing partner, partners came to me and said, forget about all of what you've been doing before, become the managing partner. We look to you to provide leadership. And at that point in time, the key person that was the driving force was Bill Farnow. He was our outside man. I tried to be the inside person so that I could smooth over whatever was necessary so that we could get the job done. Because if you don't produce it inside, forget about what's happening outside, because it'll soon disappear. And I took off on a number of different assignments that I gave myself to increase my capabilities as the managing partner. I had learned a number of these lessons with the United Way about how to manage people, about how to manage partnerships. But I had with me a person who was an HR expert who I could draw upon as necessary. Key attorney, key accountant, who helped mold some of these things into things that were possible to do, as well as some of my activities in connection with ACEC, the Consulting Engineers Council. I did over a dozen peer reviews. And if there's anything that I recommend highly for anybody who wants to be in management, is to do a peer review. Because people open their books, open their hearts, open their thoughts to you in a way so that you understand what's happening, that you can apply to your own organization, that enables you to do a better job in your own organization. I don't know whether we've had a peer review recently, but they're extremely important to provide an outsider's view of what, in effect, you are and what you're doing right and wrong. Because your peers are very willing to say things that nobody else will say to you. It's all done after confidentiality statements are signed. It's done with the best of intentions to increase the prestige and the value of the profession and the business and the industry. So that I learned a great deal out of those. And once you do one or two of them, and you have an opportunity to lead them as well as to be a member, you have an insight into your own organization that you didn't realize was there. I did the first review in Canada of a firm, and we had to take along a translator who could speak both in Montreal, because who could speak both French and English, because a number of the support staff said that they couldn't speak English. Well, we found out all kinds of interesting things. Like everybody wanted to practice their English on us, that they told us things about their bosses that you wouldn't believe. But that as we looked at our own organizations, we were doing. It was incredible to find out how it's mirrored somewhere else. And then, of course, we had a peer review. It was just before we got the big job with Hamilton County on the appraisal for the auditor's office. And I remember the one piece of advice that we got from that team to us was, when you get a big job, celebrate it. celebrated in the whole company, not just with the people who got it. And wow, what a great idea. And how neat it was when we did it. We could pass along the stuff that had happened. It was prior to email days, but the thing it does to boost the organization is incredible, especially if nothing else with the numbers. So that's one of the things that was a defining moment for me when I took these on and seriously took the job of what's involved with being a leader. And since then, in fact, I just finished a course a couple weeks ago with the Ohio Engineers Foundation on the engineer as a leader, with a lot of research that's been done about how the engineer is a different kind of leader than the ones in business, in a general business. And the mindset that engineers bring to the process. And again, it had never occurred to me before, but hey, that's right. It's different.
In what ways would you say an engineer leader is different than a business leader?
You want to be very precise about what you're doing. You want to be detailed like you do with engineering. You don't just do generalities. You got to somehow or other indicate what the details are. It's got to be logical so that you understand it. You need the same passion again that I've talked about to get the job done, but that you have to be a good listener. And sometimes engineers are not. They like to yak on and on and on, like I'm doing now. But you have to listen to what people are saying. And then you have to be effective about putting those parts of it into operation that make the sense for your organization. But you have to be determined. And the thing that makes a difference is short versus long term. And I think in engineering, we're looking for the long term. We're not looking for the profits this year. We're looking about what it's going to do for the organization into the future, whatever that is.
Chuck, another one of your reputations amongst being a leader at Wolpert is obviously your community involvement. What words of advice can you give to the new generation about the importance of getting involved in your community, both the benefits on a personal level, but also as it would benefit Wolpert?
The practice at Wolpert has expanded now so that we're beyond what we do in one or two local communities. But if you establish an office somewhere, you only become a part of that community if you're active in it. And you're seen by people as being one of the leaders because you've invested both time and money into the local community. And you've got to do both. There were times when the partnership didn't want to invest any money in the community, so we did it. Helen and I did it because it was important for us, and it was important for the organization, for Wolpert, to be seen as a leader. Once you've done that, the ripples begin to come out, and all of a sudden you find yourself involved. I was involved with the Engineers Club president, with the United Way. As a result of that, I was promoted to the Ohio United Way, helped reorganize that organization, and became its president. and I'm now an emeritus board member. I became a parent that I was interested in the community and investing in the community, became a trustee of the Dayton Foundation, which does all kinds of great things in the community and offers you an opportunity to deal with the top leadership in the community on a basis that you never get to do otherwise. So that I think people should do it for their own professional growth, because individual professional growth equals growth at Wolpert. I mean, we're only a great organization as long as we have great people. If our people aren't involved, we're not involved. And we've seen lots of organizations who have disappeared when their owners moved to Florida. It's hard to be a local community involved person if you're in Florida, so that, or Arizona, or wherever you move to. But there's a sense of pride about this community, and there are things that this community does that other communities do not. If you're looking for a rich cultural life here with the Philharmonic, with the ballet, with the opera, with Victoria, I mean, there's just so many options that are involved, and each of them provide another venue to operate in and to learn something about. Because the key thing you do is learn if you're really interested. I didn't know anything about the Philharmonic till I served on its board. I didn't know anything about the human race until I served on its board, or Dayton history. All kinds of opportunities to broaden what you understand about the community, which somehow or other filter back through the good old brain into what you produce in the way of a final product for somebody else.
For someone who's never been involved with community service in the past, what advice would you give them who, if they're maybe hesitant or they're not sure how to go about getting involved? What's some simple advice you could give somebody?
Well, if they want to get involved, one of the ways is to just offer your opportunity and, volunteer a couple hours a month or a week or whatever else you have in the way of time, so that people get to know who you are. You don't get appointed to anything, you don't get involved with anything unless people know who you are, or you come recommended. So having arrived at the scene from all of those venues, it depends on which one and which organization, it's worth it. The pride involved of going to Carolyn Park and seeing the buildings that I was the chairman of the building committee on that are in use and there is immense. And it's even better when your grandkids come and see your name on a plaque as the chairman. They didn't realize that that was something that you could really do.
What do you believe are the essential qualities of a leader?
Persistence, patience, trustworthiness, passion, enthusiasm, the ability to listen to people, to pluck out of all of that the best of all the ideas, put them together, and do them.
And what would you define as your greatest leadership quality?
The ability to change, the recognition that the world had changed. When I first became a partner, we didn't see our practice extending beyond this local area. We went through some tough times when the, what should we say, there weren't as many jobs around. Houses didn't sell as quickly. The economy was down. And realized that if we were going to continue to exist and to grow, we couldn't just depend on Montgomery and Greene County. Also, we had all of these survey crews that we would pay over the winter to sit in the office because we believe that people ought to be able to make a living. And if they were going to be good surveyors during the better weather, we weren't going to work them when it was between, below 10 or pick a number. So those days they would sit in the office. They could practice up on stuff. They could do some other things, but except for the crew chiefs, we didn't have very many people on the crews who were capable of doing very much, except maybe helping calibrate the instruments. So the idea came into being that we ought to have something in the South where we could send the crews in the winter. And because of Wally Smith's contacts, Mobile, Alabama became the favored choice. So we had a contract with the Corps of Engineers in Mobile, but they said, we won't give you a job unless you have an office here. So that's how the office in Mobile came into being, which was soon after the one in Cincinnati, which certainly was not south.
Not south of
But that was open for another reason, because we had a client there.
Right.
So that was a great idea. It was a wonderful idea, except it didn't work. Because you had to be a different caliber of person to do the kind of surveying that the Corps of Engineers wanted. And you also had to be someone from the area. So we hired those people. And of course, when it was below 40, they didn't want to work because it was too cold. But we were able to establish ourselves with them as providing quality work and hopefully moving the Corps into the early part of the 20th century. Because when we did work in Central America, they required that we use a plane table. The last time I saw a plane table was when I was in college in the 40s. I didn't even know that anybody ever did anything like that anymore, but that's what they required, so that's what we did. And if that's what they wanted, the client wanted, so we did. So we were able to build up that office. We moved some of our equipment down there, the old stereo plotters, and we were able to hire some operators down there so that we could keep that office going when they weren't out in the field on the survey crews. And then it became very apparent that we had to open other offices in locations where there was work. Charlotte became a favorite at that point in time. It we opened an office in Charlotte before every other big engineering firm had an office there. As soon as we opened an office, we found out that, hey, everybody else was also arriving in town. So if you were a leg up on it by establishing some of those relationships early in the game, we were able in Charlotte to get work because we were local and we were in locations and provided expertise along lines that were not available anywhere else. It's also where the whole idea came into being in connection with how do we sell our work. Can we sell our work through a single individual who remains the prime contact and then in effect sublets it to everybody else in the organization who's going to do it, and that funnels it back through that person again, where you have this personal contact. In some cases, you were able to pass that on directly to the person who was doing the work. In some cases, you couldn't do that at all. So again, flexibility, key word.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we got to do to get the job done. And as these began to grow, we found out there were things that we could do well, there were things that we couldn't do well. Throughout this whole process was also the big question of how do we get the people to get the job done, which of course has intensified even more in recent years of getting people. That's when the co-op program came into being, the internship programs came into being. Some of the people now who I think are still with us came to work as co-ops or summer jobs or interns. Found out they liked to work for us, took advantage of our program where we paid for their tuition, which we did in a number of cases. We also had people who took advantage of it and as soon as they got their degree, took a job somewhere else, which is just the way the chips fall. But the net result was that we were able to do it. So all of these things were, always in process, always moving together in some direction or another, and you had to do that. When we would hire key people and I would interview them, the person that I would hire on the spot was, when I said, what do you want to be in 10 years? What do you want to do? And the guys who said, I want your job. That's the person.
What would you think would be one of the key things that we need to keep in mind as we go through this growth period to make sure that that growth is intelligent?
I don't know how successful the recent acquisitions have been, but in my experience, the acquisitions were all dead ends. We were going to open an office in Portsmouth, Ohio. We hired the person who had their own firm there, who was anxious to be bought out. We didn't buy him out, we just hired him. Didn't work. We did the same in trying to open an office in Cleveland. Didn't work. A part of the reason, in my view, was that our culture is different than other organizations. We have a set of values, and I think they still exist, that make us different, so that if people aren't willing to move into what that central culture is, they're not happy. We had difficult times with architects because they didn't move into our culture appropriately. We had the same with other people, engineers who moved in and out of the organization, some as partners, because our culture wasn't one that allowed them to be the kingpin rather than a part of the team.